All right. So Citadel's Bill Griffin. Um, they were in the news a lot in 2021. Citadel was. Fuck. And um, the founder, Bill Griffin, he slams this Silicon Valley Bank bailout as American capitalism is breaking down before our eyes. Sorry. In contrast to billionaire Bill Ackman's praise for the federal government's bailout of SVB depositors, Citadel founder Bill Griffin is not impressed, telling the Financial Times that this action by U.S. regulators shows American capitalism is breaking down before our eyes. As a reminder, the FDIC's Deposit Insurance Fund normally guarantees up to $250,000 in deposits, which protects small retail customers, including mom and pop businesses. Banks pay for this guarantee with insurance premiums, but the insurance fund isn't intended to backstop deposits of bigger customers with more capacity to weather losses if a bank goes under. Yet, as the Wall Street Journal's editorial board remarks, after venture capitalists, Democratic donors, and Silicon Valley politicians held the FDIC on Sunday announced it would cover uninsured deposits at SVP and Signature Bank under its systemic risk exception. So a tweet said that I can guarantee you if it was Ohio Valley Bank going under, the Fed would be nowhere to be seen. But Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank and your tax dollars are going to bail it out. You better believe that. Apparently, Silicon Valley investors and startups are too big to lose money when they take risks. They benefited enormously from the Fed's pandemic liquidity hose, which caused SVP deposits to double between 2020 and 2021. SVB paid interest of up to 5.28% on large deposits, which is a lot better than you're going to get, which is used to loan funds to startups. But now the FDIC is guaranteeing a risk-free for startups and their investors. But now the FDIC is guaranteeing a risk-free return for startups and their investors. Uninsured deposits normally take a 10 to 15% haircut during a bank failure. Some 85 to 90% of SVB's 173 billion in deposits are uninsured. Wow. So that's the 140 billion that are uninsured. The cost of this guarantee could be 15 billion. The White House says special assessments will be levied on banks to recoup these losses. That means customers with less than 250,000 in deposits will indirectly pay for this through higher bank fees. In other words, this is an income transfer from average Americans to the deep-pocketed investors. Once again, you are being bent over, gagged, and penetrated. Griffin warned a year ago that price pressures will remain stubbornly persistent, forcing policymakers to need to hit the brakes hard, which will likely cause a recession, which he warned will leave the West facing existential problems. A year later, he proved right as the Fed's aggressive rate hikes broke something. The U.S. is supposed to be a capitalist economy, and that's breaking down before our eyes. He said in an interview on Monday. Yeah, the Fed works I mean, if you want to talk about socialism and communism, that is what the Fed enables through, fiat printing and divvying out to, prime lenders, which are prime friends, and prime embezzlers to their, prime estates. There's been a loss. There's been a loss of financial discipline with the governing bailout depositors. Uh, there's been a loss of financial discipline with the government bailing out depositors in full, Griffin added. This action by regulators raised the risk of increasing moral hazard, as the Wall Street Journal notes. Many banks have hedged their interest rate risk and diversified their deposits, which comes at a business cost. But some, like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature, didn't. Wonder why? Maybe because they're politically connected. Now the Fed is saying that's okay. We've got your back. This isn't the need to be. This didn't need to be the way, as Griffin notes. The strength of the U.S. economy meant such a forceful action was not necessary. It would have been a great lesson in. So Griffin's noting that the strength of the U.S. economy meant that they didn't have to take this action, which is also pretty outlandish. I almost let that slide, but obviously Bill Griffin is out of his mind if he thinks. But I mean, yeah, as far as what they're saying, he might be just calling another one of their bluffs, which could be a smart move. Saying, "Hey, the economy's so strong. Why would we need this?" All right. It would have been a great lesson in moral hazard, he said. Yeah, it would have, but we don't have. I mean, it's just funny when these guys. I feel like some of these guys just say this stuff just so they can make the news and act like they're a contrarian to the current printing regime, even though it's been this way for 20 years, longer than that. But in full, I mean, I guess '08, so 15 years. So when it's really started going burr, and the Pandora's box got fully opened, and we became, well, I guess you could say 1971, we went off gold standard and became fiat currency. Yeah, that played a part. '08 also played a part. I mean, you had a couple crashes that enabled more intervention. So, chop, 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 as they say. Bring down the big tree. Losses to depositors would have been immaterial, and it would have driven home the point that risk management is essential. Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially because this bank was more focused on diversity hiring and you know everything but banking, diversity, equity, you know feminism, LGBTQism, anything but keeping your money safe. We're at full we're at full employment. Credit losses have been minimal, and bank balance sheets are at their strongest ever. We can address the issue of moral hazard from a position of strength. Finally, the White House's first instinct, even in financial panic, was to spin reality and hunt for political scapegoats. Griffin points directly at the bureaucracy. The regulator was the definition of being asleep at the wheel. But we are sure no government employee will ever be held accountable for missing this risk. Likely busying themselves with diversity and inclusion threats. 100%. We give the last word to Taijit Das, who summed the sad state of affairs up perfectly. The moral hazards around bailouts are well known. It seems now that tech startups like banks, auto businesses, and anybody with an effective lobbyist are too big to fail, even if they are too difficult to understand or properly manage. As Herbert Spencer put it, the ultimate result of shielding men from the effects of folly is to fill the world with fools. Yeah. Over the last decade and a half, the economic system and financial practices have become geared around low rates, abundant liquidity, and the authorities' underwriting risk taking. Moving away from this state of affairs was never going to be easy, that is, if it is possible at all. Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, but great article. Bill Griffin, obviously smart guy. He's obviously a, you know, billionaire or something. In other news, too big to fail banks flooded with deposits as bank run drains small bank of cash. Over the weekend, amidst populist howls of outrage that a bailout of SVB would promote moral hazard, in the end, depositors did get bailed out with full recovery, but other unsecured creditors, oddly enough, would get nothing, while the common stock is a donut. So basically, if you're, you know, with the connected, you got bailed out. If you're just some average Joe, go fish, buddy, you'll get fucking nothing. And if you own stock, I'm laughing at you because you're a retard. Idiot. Can I say idiot anymore? I don't know what we're allowed to say there, but you get the point. We said that while technically true, the events that toppled Silicon Valley Bank and now Signature Bank in New York as well are really a subsidy for the big banks. Many view what's happening as a question of moral hazard and a bailout of small banks. It's really a subsidy of big banks. JPM was solidly green in Friday's rout. Yeah. Basically, people are going to look at it as, oh, the Fed came to the defense of little Silicon Valley Bank and little Signature Bank in New York. But they're really, most of these, SVB and SBNY, if you look at who their depositors are, you'd be surprised. They're not small. They're not little guys. They're not your average, federal credit union. Today, one day after small banks nearly failed amid a surge in deposit outflows, we read that after the back-to-back collapse of three smaller banks, their U.S. counterparts are seeing a rush of depositors, fearful that the crisis will spread. According to Bloomberg, JP Morgan, or as we now call it, JP Mega, the largest U.S. bank and about to become much, much bigger, alone received billions of dollars in recent days. And the Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo and Company are also seeing higher than usual volume. The top six banks in the U.S. are and have been too big to fail. The financial crisis over 10 years ago demonstrated that. Michael Immerman, an assistant professor at the University of California's Irvine Business School, told Bloomberg, so it's safer to go with a name with a higher degree of certainty. Other banks are seeing increased deposit inflows as well. Citizens Financial Group Incorporated announced Monday that has seen higher than normal interest from prospective new customers over the past few days, and that it would temporarily extend branch hours to accommodate. Confirming BBG reporting, the Financial Times writes that large U.S. banks are inundated with new depositors as small bank lenders face turmoil, which of course means small bank depositors are getting drained. According to the Financial Times report, large U.S. banks are being inundated with requests from customers trying to transfer funds from smaller lenders as the failure of Silicon Valley Bank results in what executives say is the biggest movement of deposits in more than a decade. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and other financial institutions are trying to accommodate customers wanting to move deposits quickly, taking extra steps to speed up the normal sign up or onboarding process, according to several people familiar with the matter. So basically, Bailout, the buddies at SVB and Signature Bank, who are their connected depositors, let a bank run on small banks ensue. Don't bail them out because you're going to tell everybody that you're not going to bail anybody out after this. This is a one-time thing. Let everyone flee to these big six banks. And then proceed to, complete the concentration of banking power to these six big banks, even more so. So looks like it. If it was a plan, looks like it's working perfectly. If it wasn't a plan, the coincidences are amazing. How this is working out for decentralization fanatics and wealth manipulators and everything else in the book. As we speculated over the weekend, the bailout plan revealed by the Fed, TSY, FDIC was insufficient to stabilize depositor confidence, and even though it staved off the failure of a third bank following the implosion of SVB and SVB and Signature Bank depositors, they're still attempting to move balances into larger banks such as JP Morgan, Citi, and Bank of America, as well as money market funds. That is especially the case when balances exceed $250,000 threshold, which is guaranteed by federal insurance, FDIC. And so, just like the Lehman collapse made the remaining bailed out banks stronger, so the failure of a handful of regional banks not only allowed mega banks such as JP Morgan and B of A, which have tens of billions in net unrealized losses on their HTM books, to take advantage of the Fed's new bailout facility, the BTFP, which is the buy the is it but also to beef up their depositor bases while assuring that their depositors while their profits rise too. Almost as if this was all being planned from the start. Yeah. Looks set to the run up to 1929. And that was early on in the Fed. That came about in 1913. All right, this is easy. Wall Street Journal op-ed discusses why Silicon Valley Bank failed. A select blurb in the article states, per Wall Street Journal, here's an important lesson. Here's an important lesson for companies in trouble. On Thursday, Mr. Becker told everybody to stay calm. That never works. Even since Kevin Bacon's character in Animal House told everyone remain calm, all is well. Was this a regular? Was there a regulatory failure? Perhaps. SVB was regulated like a bank, but looked like a money market fund. Then there's this. In its proxy statement, Silicon Valley Bank notes that besides 91% of their board being independent and 45% women, they also have one black, one LG. Imagine saying this is empowering. Just what we got. Imagine wanting to be known as the one black or the one LGBTQ. I'm known by my sexual identity. They also have one black, one LGBTQ plus, and 2 veterans. I'm a vet. I went and shot some. I got psyoped into going and murdering some Arabs who were also being psyoped. Not even psyoped, opt by the government. Sick bros. I'm not saying 12 white men would have avoided this mess, but the company may have been distracted by diversity demands. I'd say so. Management screwed up interest rates, underestimated customer withdrawals, hired the wrong people, and failed to sell equity. You're really only allowed to make one mistake. More proved fatal. Was management hubristic, delusional, or incompetent? I would say it's the latest. The latter. The 2 latter, actually. All 3. Sometimes there's no difference. Yeah. I think it's all 3. So, anyways, that is SVB, the bailout. Yeah, so that if your buddies tell you we live in a capitalist country, there's too many examples, and this is the latest. So, fun times, and that's that. Please, guys, subscribe below. Toys World coming at you. Let's go. Like this. Subscribe. Share. What else? Unsubscribe, then resubscribe. Then unsubscribe, then resubscribe. For the for the signups. I'd play my videos just to play them. Even if you've already watched them once, just keep replaying it so I can get some more views. Nah, I'm joking. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Comment below if you did. Yeah, subscribe too. Peace.